or is
No,
it
it's
okay?
not too bad. You're okay.
Okay. All right. Let me know. Happy Thursday, everyone. One more day. If you're like me, it feels like Tuesday will never come. And then all of a sudden Thursday gets here and you don't know what happened for the last 48 hours. So
I have no idea what day it is or what the date is.
yeah,
Because there's nothing keeping me from just, I know,
doing whatever you want.
I know today, tomorrow, and yesterday, and that's about it.
Perfect. I'm sure a lot of you guys can empathize with that for sure. We're still getting a couple requests to come in. So, all right. And for the first couple meetings, guys, I'll do some kind of more formal introductions. And as we get rolling, I'll just assume that everybody kind of knows what's going on. But just want to introduce you guys to Rachel Folden. So Rachel Folden's unique background is that she played at Marshall. She was a 4-time All-American from the California area, and then went on to play professionally for 5 years. She was a all-offensive NPF all-offensive player. So quite incredible as far as hitting goes, and went on coach collegiately. She owns her own company, Folden Fast Pitch, which she gives lessons, virtual lessons as well, and then is now a trailblazer for us. She's one of the first female coaches to coach professional baseball, and she coaches for the Cubs. So pretty incredible background. I had the pleasure of meeting Rachel on the coaching field. I coached Division I ball as well, and we played professionally against each other. It was a good time. She played a lot more than I did, and I got to watch her from a unique angle, and we've been learning from each other ever since. So tonight, what we're going to talk about, guys, is basically a concept of coaches out there is coaching ourselves obsolete, is training athletes to understand flaws and coaches to see flaws in swings, and then drills that they can do to correct them. So our goal here as we go through is really to empower the athlete to be a decision maker, to understand and own everything that she does on the field as well, just like you would off the field, but own it on the field and kind of multiply your knowledge as much as you can across the field. So you and I both know anybody out there that's coached and played before would love to go back now and play again because of the knowledge you've acquired in teaching people. And so the goal is to empower young female athletes and male athletes to have that knowledge now, to be able to be extra sets of eyes on the field and kind of coach within themselves. So we're going to kind of kick this off starting and talking about some physical flaws, and we'll actually end tonight talking about mental flaws and then open it up for questions. For those of you that are on the call, thank you guys. We're so happy to have you here. We're going to go ahead and start recording just so you guys know this is recording now. But to get rolling, what we do ask is if you have a question come up, go ahead and feed it into the chat and we will ask them at an appropriate time, but we'll make sure we get to every question that we possibly can. So Rachel, if you want to kick us off, start talking about some of the flaws that you see, and we'll kind of just bounce back and forth.
Sure. So I'm just have my phone out because I've got notes on it, and I'm also in case people want to hop on last minute and they have some issues, I'm just keeping that out. But so Liz and I were talking about after last week. You know, we kind of covered some quick things that you can set up to have your at-home hitting area or your at-home practice area, and how we can all get through this really difficult time of not being able to access our coaches and our teammates, and you know, it's just it's difficult. So this week we thought, well, let's start diving into more of the particular details, especially about hitting. And so I said, well, how about we just kind of identify some swing flaws, and then we've just been talking over the last couple days about drills that we use or concepts that we use to attack these different kinds of swing flaws. So we've identified a few. So just to give you kind of an overview of what we're going to cover today. Common flaws, getting stuck on your backside or getting like kind of just too much weight on your backside. On the other side, overstriding or lunging. Timing, having like an arm bar or a casting problem where your hands get away from your body, dropping your hands and pulling off. So we've identified those. I think there's 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can count. Good. So there are 6 of them, and we just kind of wanted to just go over them, kind of give you a general overview of what might cause these issues and then how you can fix them, because I think that we've all have hitters or are hitters that have had some of these flaws at some point in time. There's a million other swing flaws too, but we only are going to cover 6 because otherwise we would be having we would need a happy hour in this Zoom party. So yeah, we'll just cover 6 of them. So pretty much how I like to attack any sort of swing flaw is I like to use constraints. So for those of you that don't know what constraint-based approaches are, constraint-based teaching is basically instead of cueing something, like instead of you see a hitter, they're dropping their hands, hey, you're dropping your hands, stop doing that. Well, that's not fixing the problem. That's just making them aware of the problem. A constraint is instead of me telling you and cueing you through a process, I provide an obstacle or some sort of challenge that forces your body to complete the movement the way that we want it to happen. And so what that does is that makes the player or the hitter or the pitcher or whomever, whatever you're using a constraint with, it forces them to learn quicker because they are now solving the problem in their own brain versus listening to you try to solve the problem for them. And so a lot of what we're going to take you through today is a constraint. It's not, hey, hold your hands here, hey, hold your hands here, or I need you to stride this way or stride that way. It's basically a way to correct the problem and then still preserve your dad-daughter or mom-daughter relationship at home because they're figuring it out versus you screaming at them and telling them that they're not doing it right. So,
real quick, just to piggyback off of that, Rachel, to share with you guys, the mind actually, and I'm going to talk about mental game at the end, but all the studies that I've learned is that the mind actually only hears the positive side of it. So if you're telling an athlete, don't do this, it's like the athlete that you say, don't swing at the rise ball, watch the rise ball, watch the rise ball, don't swing at the rise ball, don't swing at the rise ball. All they're hearing in their brain is actually swing at the rise ball, swing at the rise ball, swing at the rise ball. So if you're saying don't drop your hands, the athlete is actually hearing, and the physical response to that is drop your hands, drop your hands, drop your hands. So what Rachel's going to be talking to you about now is how we can make the body feel this and give the positive feedback verbally so that the mind corrects itself, basically.
Yep, that's a good one. That's a good point, Liz. So one of the ways that I like to use constraints is if you see a problem in a swing, instead of, I think our natural tendency as coaches, and I did this for years, is to try to correct it in the other direction. So if you have somebody's hands dropping, naturally like, okay, well, hold them higher, right? And so you're basically trying to correct the problem, but you're not forcing a response from the brain. So one of the best ways I like to do that is what I call, we feed the flaw. So, and we'll kind of take you through a couple ways to do that. So I'm going to start with hitters that get stuck on their backside or hang back, however you really want to, put that terminology. And Liz is going to hop in here too, and we're going to collaborate on this for sure. So what I mean by getting stuck on your backside is hitters that when they gather, they have a big sway in their backside, and then they stay back there when they hit. And so a lot of times what you'll see the body's response to it will be some sort of hand drop or some sort of length in the back of their swing, but also you're going to see a lot of like one piece swinging through. And so their path to the ball is going to be very horizontal and cut across instead of vertical and through the ball. And so when you see that a lot, we know by just a lot of the tech that I've been really fortunate to use that the role of the front leg is super important. And so we have to be able to get to a 50-50 position. So Liz has a good term for it. She calls this the hitter's seat, which is basically if you're sitting, you're kind of sitting in a chair this way, the hitter's seat, you have to be able to get to a 50-50 position. So if you have a hitter that hangs back on their backside a lot, one of the things I like to do, and I use bands for everything. So I've got a band here. I know, can you see it in the camera, Liz? Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. So right now I'm this big, so I can't see myself, but I like to use bands for a lot of things, just simple like loop bands like this, or Jaeger bands or anything similar, pull-up assistance bands, whatever. So what I like to do with hitters that get stuck on their backside is I feed the flaw. So instead of helping them get forward, we're going to make their backward movement greater and force their brain to make a response. So if you've got a hitter that sways now, and now I've got this band and you can see it wants to pull me backwards, if I sway, it's going to pull me right out of my back leg. So now I have to compensate by, my brain is forced to make a response to the stimulus that's being provided, right? So that's a good drill to do. You can also hit with it. All this is just a band. I have a heavy sandbag right now. You can tie it to a weight. You can tie it to a chair. You can have mom, dad, brother, sister hold it behind you. Anything that's going to feed that flaw, I really like. And another, let me check my notes here. Another one for hitters that get stuck on their backside is to take the backward movement out altogether. So it's a drill I like to call statues, where you just stand. It's basically like a feet together drill. This also really helps you learn when to load your upper body. So if you stand here with your feet together, everything is completely upright and your elbows are relaxed like a statue. And now there's no backwards movement. So you have to learn how to load your body on the way forward. And it forces you to get to that 50-50 position versus striding out like this or kind of hanging on that backside. So when we hear the term stay back, a lot of times we think we need to stay back and put all of our weight on our back leg. We're going to turn at maximum efficiency from a 50-50 position. So we have to make sure that we get to that 50-50 position. Liz, do you have anything to add about getting stuck on your backside?
No, I just think that I talk a lot with the athletes about a good attack posture when we're getting ready to hit. So those that are getting stuck on their backside, we're really going to emphasize making sure an attack posture, just my definition of that is that slight tilt in the shoulder, the nose in front of the belly button. So if you're working the same drill that Rachel just talked about, you've got your statue here. As you go to glide forward, you should land that 50-50 hitter seat with the nose slightly in front of the belly button. There's just no way possible to have nose in front of the belly button and be all the way back without it feeling awkward to the athlete. So we really address, boom, once you get to hitter seat and you're locked in, that nose is slightly in front of the belly button. And then once hips start to come and hips engage in the swing, we're going to get stacked on top. But just we just check that attack posture all the time. And those that were on here last week, you heard me all day, every day talk about we hit a ton just starting from this hitter seat, because we want the athlete to really understand that power comes from that position, and it's not the momentum and movement towards the ball that gives you all that power.
Good, that's awesome. So so those are 2 and 3. Actually, there's 3 things there that you can really focus on when you're hitting at home to not get stuck on your backside. If you have hitters that, and you'll notice, like during the swing, their nose will get way behind their belly button, or their head will get like way behind their back knee. Those are just things to check for. Every hitter is going to be a little bit different. You're always going to have hitters that look a little funky, but they get the job done. But you really, for the most part, want to see the nose and the belly button kind of work together, as opposed to getting the hips out in front, or on the other side, which we're going to talk about right now, getting the nose way in front of the belly button. Right, so you want to make sure those 2 stay pretty close to stacked, or like Liz was saying, nose just slightly in front of the belly button during the attack posture. So now if you have hitters that overstride and get too far on their front side, that's a really common one with the younger players, especially like just little kids that are just trying to swing as hard as they can, which we should never ever coach out of them. Intent should always govern. Intent is the governor of everything that we do. So whenever you're teaching hitters, just a side note, you want to make sure that they're swinging as hard as they can, and they're building their engine to swing as hard as they can. But when you have little kids that are swinging as hard as they can, they're going to have a tendency to overstride. So one of the best things I have, and it's literally my favorite drill for it, is it's a furniture slider. So I'll walk up so you guys can see it, or like a little weight disc. It slides on the floor. So this side slides on the hardwood floor, and then this side slides on the carpet. It's a really hard sentence to say, side and slide. So what you do is you put it down, and you want to make sure that you're always anchored through your back heel. So if you're loading, we hear as athletes you want to be on the balls of your feet, but you're more stable through your heels. And when we hit, we're not trying to get from A to B as quickly as possible. We're trying to create as much force into the ground and then keep that force going and exit it out through our bat. So we need to have stability in order to do that, right? So I take these little sliding discs. Liz, can you see my feet?
I can.
You can? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So you're gonna take the slider and you're gonna put it underneath the ball of your foot so that your heel is on the ground. So right now, right away, the most stable part of my foot is my heel. So I know I'm on my heel. The rest of my foot can slide, but my heel has a nice anchor. Once you get to that position, just have the hitter hit from there. And you'll know right away if you have a hitter that's pushing off of their back leg. We don't want to push off of our back leg. Everybody thinks you want to like use your legs when you swing. You want to push through the front leg like crazy. You want to try to move the earth down with your front leg, but your back leg is basically just there to allow you to load your pelvis over the stable back leg. And that's its only job, and to stay anchored into the ground as long as possible. So you put your heels on the ground, your ball of your foot's on the slider, and just have them take a normal swing. If they push off, before their foot comes down, that slider is going to go. And if you don't have, these cost me $5. You can buy them at Five Below for a set of 2. If you don't have sliders, use a paper plate on carpet. It works just fine. If you're stable, I can take a full swing here. I can take a full swing and my foot might move away from it because I'm pretty tight in the hip area. The slider might move, but the key is that you're not losing that stability and pushing and shooting that slider the other way. So that's one of my favorite drills to work on, not overstriding and over lunging, because usually that's just caused by someone who's launching themselves off of their back foot.
And coaches out there, don't stress, because some of you guys might be out there going, hey, I tell my kids all the time to push off of their back leg. I was one of them. Less than a year ago, I was talking about pushing off the back leg. And that's just, you know, all of the coaching that we've been doing is product of the technology that we've had availability to use. So just know, I mean, go way back to Squish the Bug, right? That was a product of, we have no video that can break it down and show us how, all we can see by the naked eye is how the hitter started and how the hitter finished. And all we could come up with was Squish the Bug. So if you're out there and you're teaching that, this is something that is it's very humbling. You just go back and say, hey, I empowered myself with more knowledge, and these are what we can do. So don't stress if your kids have been hearing that for years and years and years. This is an easy correction to coach into your kids by utilizing these skills.
A great point. I mean, I've gone through the coaching evolution, just like, and I continue. I hope in 5 years we're all trolling ourselves as coaches and saying, I believe we taught that, right? Isn't that the goal?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then on the other side, just to kind of go with overstriding and kind of bring it back, you can do the same thing with the band, just in the other direction. So again, we're feeding the flaw, right? If I'm overstriding and getting too far this way, tie the band around your waist and make you get even further forward, and then you got to work really hard at it. Another really good way to do.
Rachel, really quick, I know we'll be seeing your backside here because you're a lefty hitter, but could you show us that for the athletes that want to know how to do that?
I can show you from the right side.
Oh, hey, girl. Take it easy.
Just mostly. Okay, so here, right now, if I pick up my foot, immediately the band wants to pull me forward. So I have to work on controlling and using my glutes to control my pelvis so that it doesn't allow myself to carry too far forward and swing there. Another super effective way to do it is to tie the band around the front knee, because usually what you'll see when you have an overstrider is you'll see that knee kind of go this way. And so this really helps you use that front leg to transfer energy up instead of allowing it to escape out the front or back down into the ground. So you tie it around your knee here, just above your knee, and same thing. And then it encourages you to pull that knee back and create that good speed in your pelvis. You got anything?
Awesome. Yeah, so for lungers, and I don't have it out here with me, but I mean, you guys can use anything, whether it's a 2x4 you have at your house or a paver. But basically what you're going to do, and shocker, right? Shocker, we're going to go back to the hitter's seat. But for a kid that tends to want to lunge, by putting a 2x4 or something just to elevate underneath that front foot, even if it's something as small as this, you're elevating that front toe a little bit. So it's forcing the athlete to push down into that heel, and they're naturally going to end up pushing against, boom, and creating that pressure from the ground up. And Rachel and I had this dialogue about, gosh, I think it was 2 years ago. Her and I were going back and forth and debating on whether you go toe to heel or whether you land heel. And what I told her is, well, once your heel hits, you're deciding if you're swinging or not. And she said, yeah, you are. That's 100% correct. But she talked about the ability to create more power and generate more power through the heel. And it's proven on power plates, and they have the technology available at the Pro League for sure. But that's what we do to fix lungers. And maybe you guys have like a plate, like an actual lifting plate that you use. But yeah, just put their toe up on top of that and their heel down on the ground, and have them swing from that position. And they're going to start to realize, wow, I really was lunging out. Now you're having them a little bit elevated, and they'll plant that heel down. So that's what we do.
Yeah, I like that a lot, stepping onto an elevated surface. And you can do that with the reverse for the hitters that tend to hang back. You can also, or I'm sorry, for the hitters that lunge as well, you can also drop the plate and make them control themselves down that way too. But yeah, you can step on it. You see a lot of hitters that will step on a pitching mound, right? So they have an elevated surface, or step down the ramp, just depending on whatever your flaw is. So we had, I want you to take us through, because you had a really good, for the hitters that bar their arms.
Sure.
Before, while you're getting set up for that, one of the biggest causes of the straight front arm, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the dropping of the hands, but typically when our arm gets straight, that's because our body didn't produce enough turn speed from the ground up. And so our body is searching for something. And so your body is just basically one big giant ball of rubber bands that are just begging to be stretched. And so if we didn't give ourselves enough speed on the way up by turning from the ground up in a good sequence, what's going to happen is the first thing we're going to do is straighten that arm, and we're going to create some stretch right here on that front shoulder. Now, the problem that creates is twofold. Number one, typically when you're straightening that front arm, you're going to get a very flat bat as you come through. Okay, we don't want a flat bat. We want the bat to behave more vertically so that it can stay through the zone longer. And then number two, the straighter my front arm is, the more likely I am to pull up and off of the ball. And so when you have that, it's usually a lack of strength in your rear scap. So the muscles that surround your rear scap. Okay, get an anatomy and physiology coloring book. I'm not even gonna lie, I 100% have one, and I color in it to learn the muscles that are around there and then figure out how to strengthen them. But the muscles that surround your scap or your shoulder blade are what keep your hands close to your body. So Liz has got a couple good drills just to feel the arm lengthening at the correct time instead of lengthening out the back. And I'm gonna let her take you through those real quick.
Yeah, so this is just a simple synergy band. You can get creative and use a lot of things. Like if I didn't have this, so ladies going, well, I don't have one of those at home. Yeah, you guys have 1,017 hair ties. So loop them together until you get something that's long enough and elastic enough that when you put it on, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna put it on and kind of loop it into the hand here, and then you're going to drop it underneath the elbow. What this allows us to do, guys, is if we get long early, we feel the release and we hear the snap. So I like this drill because it's feel, it's touch. So your kinesthetic learners that have to learn by feel, they feel it, or your auditory learners that learn by hearing, they hear it. So you're touching two senses at one time to help a hitter learn. But basically, if we're in the right position here, I know I've got a T, I'm not gonna hit anything, but if we're in the right position here, this is not going to release until we extend through to contact. Now on the reverse side, you guys can also use it on the back arm, because you will see some hitters that maybe do fine with the front arm, but it never releases. They never actually get to extension. So you can actually double up and put 2 of these on the arm, because for those of you that maybe it was hard to see, if I get long, it snaps off. If I get long early, it will release before contact ever happens. So this guy's your best friend. Again, you can loop together a ton of hair ties to get something like this, but this guy's your best friend if you get long. Kind of capitalizing on what Rachel said real quick, I think a lot of swing flaws happen not only from what she talked about, the kinetic sequence not syncing up and not creating enough energy and power, but I also think a lot of it happens because oftentimes young hitters especially, their backside leaks and they start to swing before they actually get that front heel down in the ground. So another resolution, if you're not sure how to fix this, is again, make sure that their front foot is landing before the pieces are starting. Because imagine telling them to swing on one foot, their swing would look just like how they wobble from the top. Once both feet are down, a lot of problems can be corrected. So do make sure you always check their balance.
That's good. So I like those. Those ones give some good feedback. You could take the same band too. And I know Chaz just hopped on here. Chaz from Baseball Rebellion just hopped on here, and this is kind of a concept that he has. I think it's called a bat drag buster. But I'm poor, so I've got these bands that I bought. I bought like a pack of 5. Just it's the same band that Liz was using, and you can tie it around your elbows. And so again, we're feeding the flaw, right? If my arm gets straight back here, my elbows are going to come together. So right now, what does the band want to do? It wants to pull my elbows together. So I can swing now, and I have to maintain my space as I swing. And your body's going to do that naturally because it doesn't want to swing with 2 straight arms. So it's going to naturally correct itself, and you can swing full with them too. So you might get some movement on the band, but for the most part, it works really, really well. So that's another drill you can do to fix that arm bar.
Hey, Rachel, before we move on, and I'm sorry, Cameron, I missed this question, and I appreciate the dialogue running over here, but one of the questions from an athlete is, does the place that we stand in the box affect our stride?
I would answer that with no, but your stride might affect where you stand in the box. So if you are a natural, there's a lot of examples of these hitters, and you can go online and find them. But there's a lot of hitters. I think back to like Fred McGriff that played for the Braves, where he took a big stride across his body. Jose Altuve is another one that strides across his body, and then so they might need to stand further off the plate, right, so that they can give themselves space to stride this way. And then you have hitters like Chris Davis for the A's or Ian Kinsler that will start open and they'll stay open this way. And so that might be a situation where you might need to stand closer to the plate. As far as front or back of the box, I'm a big fan of just park your rear end in the back of the box and give yourself the most time and the most space to hit, because hitting is hard. And when you're operating under a time constraint, stand in the back of the box. When you move up to the front of the box, you do not take any movement away. You just make it harder to see, and you give yourself less time to react. So
Sweet. And then Chaz, it is called the Bat Drag Buster. So there is a tool out there. We're not endorsed by any means unless Chad wants to kick us something back. But no, there's tools out there for you guys. Lauren's asking, what do you think about perfect connection to help put between the arms?
So I make something similar. And so for all of you that don't know what perfect connection is, it's a cuff that goes here, a cuff that goes here, and a bar in the middle. And so what it does is it keeps your elbows apart. Now you can make one. I just take a PVC pipe, drill a hole in each end, and loop 2 rubber bands on each side, and then just put a nut on the end of the screw. But they're good for different reasons. So I like the perfect connection to teach you how to make contact maybe closer to your body for hitters that need to they need to connect deeper in the zone for whatever reason. But as far as fixing the flaw, it's just holding your elbows in the right position. So it's not really correcting the issue as much as it's just kind of showing you what it should feel like. So take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, I have used something similar for sure.
Sweet. And I think anything you guys can be creative with to teach an athlete to feel. It doesn't matter what it looks like. I mean, before that kind of stuff came out, before this stuff, like the Velo Pro, which I was supposed to talk about when we were talking about sitting on the back side or fixing the front side, before all that stuff came out, like this is how like the Dominican coach showed me. He's like, you make the home plate and then you make the home plate, and that's how he showed me what your elbows should look like. And so, I mean, you have the tools readily available to you. I think that those people that invent these types of things are amazing because it simplifies it for us, and it puts tools in our pocket that we know are proven to work. You do have to obviously learn how to use them, but you don't have to do this. This isn't $1 million sport. It doesn't have to be. You can also creatively find ways to feel these things and be successful on the budget that is appropriate for you and your family. So don't be discouraged because you don't have it budgeted. If you do, fantastic, and share it with as many people as you can, because baseball is America's game, because everybody in America should be able to play it, not just those that can afford it. So share the tools as much as you can.
Yep, that's good. I don't know about you guys. I grew up on the poor side of town, so I was really fortunate to grow up in California with nice weather where I could just go outside and play all day. I was fortunate. I feel bad for right now the kids that are in Chicago. Chicago's getting like 2-3 inches of snow tonight, so like it's April 16th. I don't understand what's happening, but that's fine. So anyway, so now we're going to move on to dropping your hands, which is a big one, okay? Now, before we get to dropping your hands, I want you guys to understand, hitting pop-ups is not the same as dropping your hands, okay? Just hear a little louder again. Hitting pop-ups is not the same as dropping your hands.
Preach it, girl. Amen. All right.
Dropping the ball will tell you everything you need to know about how your bat hit the ball. So to give you just a quick little physics lesson, okay? If my bat comes downhill and clips the bottom of the ball, I'm going to create a ton of spin, and that ball is going to go straight up. On the other side of the spectrum, if my bat comes slightly up and impacts the ball that's coming slightly down, and I hit the bottom of the ball, it will still have backspin, but it will have significantly less backspin, and therefore it will carry, and that's where your line drives and your home runs and your doubles come from, okay? If you're fast, there's triples, but I don't know what a triple is, never hit one. So you guys, like, this to that is not because you swung too far, you dropped your hands and swung too far uphill. Downhill versus downhill is either gonna create a ball that's straight down or straight up, and you have to hit it extremely perfectly. You have a very small margin of error to hit that ball on a line, and if you do, the hardest ball you could possibly hit is a single up the middle. If you swing slightly up, you have more margin for error, and because you're matching the pitch plane, and you can hit the ball with authority, and your best hit is now over the fence instead of right in front of the center fielder. So just so we're clear, so when we talk about swing flaws, we're talking about actual mechanical hand drop, not I hit too many pop-ups, okay? So just so we're clear on that. But this is my favorite tool that fixes like a lot of flaws. So I call it the hitting wall. I'm sure there's probably some cool name for it. I'm sure someone probably sells it and charges a lot of money for it. But it's literally, this is 1.5 inch pipe cut in a 2 foot by 2 foot square. Okay? I put elbow there. I bought 2 elbows, 4 T's to join all the pipes. And then down at the bottom are a couple extra inches of space, which you do not have to put on there if you don't want to.
Can you lift that up so we can see it, Rachel?
What's up?
Lift it up so we can see it.
So that's what it looks
and
like.
turn it around so they can see the little legs you got on there. Okay, perfect.
Got it? Okay. That's the hitting wall. All said and done, I measured it this morning. This particular wall stands about 2 foot 5 inches off the ground. Okay. When you're hitting with the hitting wall, okay, I'm going to turn it sideways first. Actually, let's start this way. When you're setting up, you want to set the tee up direct dead center in the middle of the wall on the other side of the wall. So the wall is between you and the tee. The tee should be about 6 inches away from the wall, so about this far away. And the head of the tee should always be lower than the wall. Okay? So the wall serves no purpose if the tee is higher than the wall. You have to have the tee lower than the wall. The lower the better, because it's really going to push you. Okay? So the tee would be here. And when you set up, you want, when you get to your stride position, your 50-50 position, your hitter's seat, whatever you call it, you want to be pretty close to the wall, and you want the back side of the wall to split you in half like this, okay? So what this will do is if the ball, again, picture the ball here, if I come down and my hands drop and I come through, my bat is gonna nail the wall. Most of the time you're gonna hit right here, you're gonna come down this way, knock the wall over, and you're gonna get extremely frustrated. Now, when you do this at home, don't overcoach it. Put the ball on the tee and shut up and let your athletes figure it out, okay? I make it a competition. I put the tee as, if it's an average hitter, I'll put it about, or a novice hitter, I'll put it about 6 inches lower than the wall. If it's an advanced hitter, I'll put the tee as low as it'll go. And I'll say, okay, you have to hit the ball off the top of the cage. Or you have to hit the ball in the air. Because the first thing they're going to do is they'll go to hit it. Their bat will still be coming downhill like this. They'll hit the ball, and the ball will go straight down because they're afraid of the wall. And it's fine. It will freak them out at first. So to give you kind of a visual from the side, if you set up, you can see what kind of path this promotes. It promotes more of a vertical path that comes in line with your back shoulder. And this also will help hitters that tend to pull off or spin out early. If they spin out early, they might be able to get to the ball here and hit it, but they're gonna nail the wall on the other side. And so you're gonna see a lot of fixes for this one. Start with doing it off of a tee. If you feel like you get really good at it, you can do it with front toss and flips. But yeah, it's a great kind of an all-encompassing tool. And again, this is just kind of a set it and forget it solution. Just set it up, shut up, and let your hitters hit off of it, and they will eventually figure it out. So it promotes a lot of things. A good hip hinge, which we talked about last week, takes care of the hand dropping issue and takes care of a pulling off issue as well.
Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of capitalize, and this is actually a drill. If you think about the band that Rachel's been using tied to the sandbag behind her, conceptually, so this is the Velo Pro. Again, I'm not endorsing this in any way. I like it. I think it's a great product. My kids really like it too. But thinking about feeding the flaw like Rachel just talked about, if I have this on and set up, because it's kind of a pain to put on and off, but I would have this on and set up, and I would actually go ahead and twist it and spin it a couple times to fit my arm length, obviously. And then I want to feel the resistance, because if we're talking about not dropping the hands, I want to feed the flaw. I want to feel the resistance of having to keep my hands up, because right now what's wanting to happen is the easy answer is to let my hands drop. Okay, so I'm having to kind of push against myself to feel my hands high, and boom, I can still actually swing all out from here. Same conceptually, Rachel would do that using her stuff. So again, it's just using what you have available, what tools you have available, but that's the concept of feeding the flaw that Rachel's talking about. Is it's forcing, and it's proven, it's forcing you mentally to force fix that issue, so that when you remove that, your body's already made the correction. It's pretty awesome.
Good stuff, Liz. You can do that with like you said, if you don't have a Velo Pro, that's cool. Take your pull-up band, put it under your heel, put the band in between your hands, and there you go. Okay. Right now, I mean, this is a pretty heavy duty band. It wants to pull my hands down quite a bit. So you can use that. The last one we have, and it's a big one, is timing. Okay. So timing is the hardest thing to teach and the most important thing to have as a hitter. So how do we work on timing? Number one, get off of the tee. Okay, get off of the tee. If you want to learn how to hit a moving ball, hit a moving ball. Okay. I saw something on Twitter. I think Jason Ochart posted it, and he's like, imagine getting ready for a 120-mile-per-hour serve coming from a tennis player at Wimbledon, and you're getting ready to train, and then it had a picture of a tennis ball sitting on a tee, right? And it just seems so silly, but it's like, that's what we do, right? I'm not saying the tee is bad. I love the tee, okay? I use it for a lot of things, but we have to get the ball moving as much as possible. Do these drills when the ball is moving in space. So not only are you learning new mechanics, but you're also learning them on how to attack a pitch that's actually moving in space. So that's number one. I love to use overload and underload training. So I'm a big fan of like putting a mid-weight bat donut on a bat, so it makes the bat heavier but it's a mid-weight, so it's not super end loaded, although you can add end loaded weights to the bat too.
This is that, just in case. I did. I brought it from 1982.
That works. Bat donuts work, and they're super cheap. You can do lead tape on the end of a bat. You can do whatever you want. I like to take, for me, like to keep in my hitting bag, I like to keep a fungo like this, which is a long light bat that I can swing super, super fast, but the barrel's really, really far out. And so take a fungo, and that will teach you how to swing fast. It'll make your swing even faster than it is, which makes you have to have some sort of like response to that stimulus. But then,
and this is a fungo if you guys don't have one. PVC pipe.
So
yeah.
You can have a fungo. Fungos are great for doing underload training. And then you can add a donut, or take a baseball bat, maybe dad's old baseball bat, that's probably a 32 or a 33, which is probably about the length of your bat. And now you have a heavy version of your bat. And you can train those in different ways. So you can take a really, really fast pitch and hit with a super heavy bat. So it makes you have to get your swing off quickly, right? Or you can have a really slow pitch with a super light bat. And that really trains your body to learn how to wait. And you can do all kinds of different things. You can train at the same speed and go heavy bat, light bat, heavy bat, light bat. And then you can use your game bat in there too, and use 3 different weights at the same time. So I think I'm a big fan of overload and underload training, but not only is it going to be good for timing issues, it's also going to build swing speed. I know Axe Bats has a set that they sell that's baseball and softball. But you can, again, get creative and make your own with a bat donut or some weight. And or if you got a fungo laying around in an old baseball bat, I love that. Liz has got a couple good timing drills as well. You can take a
Yeah, and Robert, I do see your question asking about balance. We'll get to that shortly, but one of the drills that I do is a multiple plate drill. You can have a pitching machine, or you can have a front tosser. God love our parents, but some of them are as athletic as throwing the ball right down the middle, all at the same speed. And let's let them do that. But a way that you can work timing with the same speed and the same pitch is having multiple plates. So right now I have 4 plates there, about a foot apart from each. And what we do is we'd start in the back plate. We'd hit one solid. When we hit one solid, we move up a plate. Hit it solid. You kind of just move up and back, warming yourself up through it. And then if you're wanting to work change ups, especially because that's a timing thing as well, you're going to hit a series of about 6 or 7 balls at the very, very front plate. And then you're going to drop all the way back to the back plate. So at the collegiate level, I mean, gosh, we were in a 60-foot cage, and we were probably throwing front toss from about 35 or 40 feet. We might have had 7 or 8 plates and hitters ending up 4 to 5 feet away from the pitcher, just because we're challenging them to turn on their mental game, make sure that they're just trusting their swing and working just different timing. So
you can also, to piggyback off of that, you can also randomize it too. You know, in a round of 8,
absolutely.
You can say, hey, you just have coach standing, or dad coach standing there, mom coach, whatever, and just say, okay, front. They walk to the front, swing from the front plate, back, swing from the back plate, front, middle. And you can just challenge them to find that timing, and you can use the 3-plate drill with the different bats, and that'll really, really give your brain a fun ride. So I like those a lot. This is all stuff that we can, it's all stuff we can implement at home, which I like. And Chaz, I see that I have bat drag busters. I do. They're at my shop, and we're shut down. So I don't know.
I'm available to receive shipments as well, Chaz. Just thrown out there. Anyways,
I've got bat drag busters. You said some a long time ago.
Robert, what we use and what I've actually liked, I used to use the balance beam, and I used it as a hitter myself. And I'll tell you, the number one thing I was terrified about for balance with using the balance beam is literally making sure I was too worried about getting my front foot down safely and still being able to plant my heel down and all the good stuff that comes with that. What I actually got, and I got this from UC Riverside, Nikki Palmer does this. She actually puts her kids up on boxes and platforms. And so we have some jump platforms that we use to train for explosiveness. This is Coach Nala, by the way. But we had 2 boxes that we put up, and we just stand the kids up on the boxes. And they're wide enough that a hitter can feel 100% comfortable. and you can do front toss with them up there, and we'll elaborate on that in a second. But the nice thing is that they have to balance because they're high enough that the kids are worried about falling off if they're not. So it forces them to think about balance on a platform that gives them still a good wide firm base for them to get their feet down. So that's one thing we found we're really successful with. So if I were to use those, taking it to the front toss portion of it, I would start and I would just be working. If I'm just working fastballs, I'm going to stand on a platform and I'm going to pitch to my kids on the platform. That way they're seeing eye to eye, same level. Then I want to work maybe rise balls. Okay, I'm going to sit down in the chair and I'm going to throw upwards to my athlete that's now going to be seeing the ball elevate and is having to understand that. And then the nice thing is about that, and conceptually, I'm sure you guys can think about that. I can work drop balls to a hitter on front toss, even if I can't throw one, by standing on a chair and having them down on the ground. So you can work multiple different pitches that way. But yeah, my favorite thing for balance is put them on a tall platform that gives them a wide, comfortable base. So they're set up for success, but still mentally the mind's like, I don't want to fall off of that. You know, you want it to be high enough that there's like that almost that need to stay safe and stay on it.
Right. That's good. So yeah, that, another one for timing is, I call it, it's like just a tennis ball bounce drill. And sometimes you can play with, we have tennis ball home run derby. If anyone's hit with me in the cage, we've played this game at some point. But basically what you do, and this is kind of a good kind of catch-all drill, kind of all-encompassing for everything we talked about today, is so you have the hitter just stand somewhere in an open space. Now do this like in a parking lot would be good, but take tennis balls. And so bounce the tennis ball. So sometimes you bounce the tennis ball close to you and it's going to have a higher, slower bounce. Sometimes you bounce the tennis ball closer to the hitter and it's going to have that short upward skip bounce and they have to adjust to it. But one of my favorite things to do with it is stand far enough away where when you bounce the ball, maybe you bounce the ball over here and now the hitter has to step over and get into a good hitting position. Maybe bounce the ball behind them so they have time to come and set themselves. And what you're doing is, and we call it tennis ball home run derby, so you're trying to hit the ball out of the park. The goal there is to create some sort of a dynamic feel. Hitting is athletic, it's highly athletic. So be an athlete when you hit, right? And so it kind of gives your hitter a chance to stop thinking about all their mechanics and just start worrying about where the ball is and how fast it's getting there and how far they're trying to hit it. So I like that drill a lot, and you can vary the bounces. And if you don't have a lot of space, that's fine. You can just bounce the tennis ball, have them stand in the box, and now you can control the speed. Same thing with side toss, right? You can regular side toss, fastball, every once in a while pop one straight up in the air so that it comes down and it gives them the feel of a changeup or a curveball or an off-speed pitch or something like that. So those I really like for timing drills.
Hey, Cassie, I'm going to answer your question or ask your question here in just a second. Thank you for it. Before we talk about some mental game stuff, because that's, I think, one of the last flaws that goes undercoached is a lot of the flaws sometimes can happen between the ears. So we will talk about that. And I know we're set for an hour, but I'm more than happy to stay on and make sure everybody's questions are answered tonight. But one of the questions is, Rachel, is for youth athletes, how much should you focus on correcting these hitting flaws versus letting them develop their swings naturally and then correcting them when they develop more strength?
Cassie, that's a great question, and I know your age, and so I'm very, very impressed by that question because I know Cassie pretty well. Cassie is a baseball player, by the way, so
Love it.
You know, at any point, let athletes like kids be kids and move naturally. You never ever want to take the natural human movement out of somebody's swing. Okay. The worst thing we did as parents, and I know this just because, like, you know, I had parents too who coached me when I was a kid, is like, the first thing you do when you pick up a bat is like, okay, now stand like this and put your feet here and put your elbow here. And before you know it, before you ever even had a chance to swing, they were coaching it out of you. And so let your athletes develop, right? Number one, intent should drive the bus, always. Tell someone to swing hard, and guess what? They'll find out, you'll figure out what they're capable of. Give them the freedom to swing hard, give them the freedom to fail, and then you can diagnose the flaws from there. And a lot of this, everybody who's in here, A lot of this stuff is solved in the weight room. A lot of it. Just by being a better athlete, you'll swing better. Okay? Being stronger and more stable never made anybody worse as a hitter. It never made anybody worse. No one is like, oh my God, you know what? I deadlifted too much and now I can't hit anymore. Nobody says that, right? Because our job is to take as much force and put as much force as we can into the ground. And when it comes back up, our body is to hang on to as much of that energy as we can and put it out through the back. So being stronger and more stable is always, always should be your focus. So when you have youth athletes, the best thing you can do is encourage them to play multiple sports. Something that builds like spatial awareness, like gymnastics are great, combat sports are great, wrestling, martial arts, things like that are great for that. But when it becomes a strength issue, always attack it as a strength issue first. The mechanics should be the last piece of the puzzle. So that was a great question because I'm actually really happy I got to talk about that. Mechanics should be the last piece of the puzzle. If you're asking a hitter to not fall off of the 2 boxes and they're not physically strong enough to hold themselves up, they're going to fall every single time and they're just going to get frustrated. Let's attack the strength deficiency first and then put them back on the boxes later.
And those of you that were here last week, you heard us talk about, and I'm a huge believer in it, the number 1 and number 2 things you do in this sport every single time is have to generate as much power as you can and have to run as fast as you can every single time. You be as explosive as possible. So strength is huge, and you can do that for those of you out there maybe coaching 6, 7, 8-year-old girls or our gentlemen. We can teach you how to appropriately build strength just using body weight. So great question, Cassie. Thank you. Hey, so last thing I want to talk about is just the mental game. And we're going to touch on this throughout all of these series. So we're just going to kind of briefly discuss, but the mental game, guys, for those of you that want to just have a basic understanding, okay, there's 2 brains, right? There's the left brain and the right brain. And the left brain is words and thought out processes. So it's methodical. And then the right brain, guys, is physical. This is your athlete. It's your music. It's things like, for those of you that are old enough to drive, it's that drive that you took and you look up and you realize you got home, but you really don't remember a whole lot on the drive. It's all the natural stuff that's happening. So there's actually 5 ways that you can engage the right brain. And those of you who know who Sue Inquist is, one of the most winningest softball coaches of all times and an incredible athlete herself, she used to talk about the circle of focus. Get in there for 3 seconds and focus and then step out. Get in there. And I always just thought about it simply as the circle, but the right brain or the athlete can stay on for 3 seconds at a time. You just have to train it to. So the 5 ways that you can turn the right brain on: 1 is breathing. It's a deep, purposeful breath. So in and letting the air out. That's one way. Another way is movement. So those of you that know this hitter, right, this hitter that sways, they're actually triggering the athletic brain, the right brain, to come on. Another one is humming. So not singing words, but humming, whistling. For those of you whose dad is always, doing yard work, whistling around, he's right brain. He's athlete brain. Another one is colors. So specifically seeing a color that makes you turn. Nike about 15 years ago made contacts that were specific for sport, and they made baseball-oriented red contacts that helped you see the red seams. That actually forced people to use their athlete brain. And then the last one is shapes. Being very visual with your mindset. So playing the game, kind of like if I'm a pitcher and I'm trying to turn my right brain on and I'm throwing a fastball, I'm going to visualize seeing flames out of the back of that fastball before I do it. It's going to force that right brain to turn on. So I know that that's all a lot, and I don't want you to get caught up on it. Everybody has usually 2 things that they do, but one of them should always be breathing. And the way you can teach your kids to do this is that they're to take a deep breath in, and especially like say they're hitting off the tee, before they hit, they need to take a deep breath in and try and blow the ball off of the tee as hard as they can. And while it's blank and everything's shut off, that's when they swing. Okay, so obviously there's time to teach mechanics and to be thinking about it, but when it's time to just go to work, that's what we have to do. And my soapbox about mental game is that the mental game for me was probably 85 to 90% of my game, meaning if my mental game was good, my physical performance was on point. If my mental game was bad, it was off. So since it was such a huge part of my game, I had to commit to practicing that part of the game that much of the time. Okay. And there's some arbitrary, I think, statistic out there that says mental game can affect up to 16% of your athletic performance. That is an extra 1.6 hits out of 10 that makes you a Hall of Fame hitter. So I think just learning to breathe before every rep and learning to use it on purpose and not being afraid of that blank stare is um, is the best thing an athlete can learn. And so empower your kids to learn it early and be on it about it. And it's hard because it's the last thing that we think about, but it's the first thing that will take our game down the toilet really fast. So make sure you spend some time on it. So we're going to open up for questions. You won't offend us if you have to jump off at 7, but we did say we'd leave some time for questions. So if anybody else has anything, we've got Stuart here who's asking, are there any drills for helping a player that has a good swing for the most part, but has trouble extending through the ball? She just keeps the Dominican home plate angle even after contact. That's probably not politically correct, so please don't quote me on that. But yeah, there are a ton of drills. We actually talked about one last week, which is great, but it's worth mentioning as often as we possibly can. But one of the drills is get a really old bat, go out into the field as far away as you can, or if you're in a cage, just make sure the cage has small enough holes that you don't throw anything through it. But you're literally going to stand in your stance, go ahead and stride to prepare for contact, and then you're going to release and throw the bat as far as you can. For someone who has short arms and doesn't extend, the bat's literally going to go like nowhere, and it's just going to kind of flip a little bit and land. You're wanting them to throw that bat absolutely as far as they possibly can. Caveat again, stay away, get in a dugout, get under shelter, whatever, because I've seen kids throw the bat behind them. I've seen them do crazy things. So make sure you are in a big field, but that is a drill. Another drill that I like to do, and Rachel mentioned it last week, is using your PVC pipe, but actually choking up on it. Because if you have a kid that doesn't get extended and won't reach to get through that bat, or that PVC pipe is actually going to give them feedback. I've used a PVC pipe before. For those of you that can think like this, if you put like a little a T on it, you can actually put a T and a little extension just below the hands. And so those that aren't getting extended, they're going to see that extension come into their face. They're going to have to reach out. So that's something you can do. And then we also, sorry, go ahead.
Keep going.
Oh, and then the last thing, another thing that we just focus on doing is actually just hitting to the Y. So we may go to contact, like this is with a T involved, but we may go to contact and kind of pull backwards and understand our swing backwards, and then boom, we're just gonna snap and extend and point. And then a fun one is the chuck it. Like those of you that know, I actually have one right here. I'm gonna step out for a second, but if you have the kids use the longer version of the chuck it, there's a short version, a little guy, and a longer version, but you can actually have kids swing and have to release it, because those that don't, if they just do this and kind of go to contact and finish, the ball's going to go all sorts of everywhere. So you can also utilize this as a tail. So that's 4. And then Rachel, what do you use?
For extension, to me, extension is a byproduct of, I think, can you switch? Am I on the full screen right now?
I'm going to switch it over. Sorry.
That's good. I just want to make sure I wasn't a little person. I'm already little enough. We don't need to make me any smaller. So when you do extension is literally, again, your swing is about taking the force from the ground and filtering it up through your body and then eventually out through your back. So if I'm swinging and my torso never stops turning, my bat's going to come across my body this way, and I'm going to vacate some of that extension, right? If when I turn, because eventually each segment that starts to unload has to decelerate. Deceleration is a big part of the swing. So that's why our front leg eventually straightens out. It's trying to decelerate the pelvis. Then here comes my torso, and it's bringing the bat through. And once I get to about here, my torso is going to stop, and then the energy's got to go somewhere, right? It's either going to go back down my body or it's going to go back up. We can't create energy. That's a law of physics, right? So as we turn, if my torso stops, now the bat is going to come around and leave my body, okay? So if I'm having trouble pulling off this way, okay, this kind of goes back to the pulling off that we talked about. It's usually a lack of deceleration in your torso. So the best way I like to do it is have the hitter swing, and right when they are about to make contact with the ball, whether it's on a tee or being flipped at them, imagine somebody punching you in the stomach right before you hit the ball. So basically, once your belly button points to the ball, so if you think about the pitch being outside, my belly button's going to stop sooner. And once I get to here, the bat's going to fly off my shoulder and go in that direction. If I continue and keep this position here, I keep turning and then get punched in the stomach later, I can hit an inside pitch, and you can hit everything in between. But basically, your ability to extend is directly related to your torso's ability to stop. So if you think about it, how the heck am I supposed to extend up the middle and away from my body if my body never stops turning, right? Every good hitter has a turn, a stall of their torso and shoulders, and then maybe they'll pick the rotation up at the end, but you'll see that momentary stall. Right as they turn, it stops, the bat leaves them, and then they pick it back up on the other end. So just watch that. That's a really good way to manage. But that takes a lot of core strength. So that goes back to the strength training. But the punch in the stomach is a really good visual that seems to work for a lot of the younger hitters, especially.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, Derek, it says, my son Brennan would like to know drills to get you to turn the barrel better instead of pushing the hands. FYI, he's 12. And hi, Rachel. And then he also wants to add drills to keep the hands connected to the back shoulder. So let's address that in two. Can you share with us a couple drills? I'll let you take this one, Rachel, to turn the barrel better.
Yeah. Hi, Derek. Coach Brown. Liz, he coached for the Bandits for a year.
Yeah, I know the name.
He's kind of a big deal. All right, so here's my best drill I got for you. So if you've got Jaeger bands and you're a pitching coach, so if you don't have Jaeger bands, leave the chat because you better. So I got J bands, okay? And move my sandbag closer. All right, you got J bands. Tie them to the wall. I'm just tied it here, okay? Take your PVC pipe, okay? One hand over, one hand under. Pull back towards your body, okay? Now as you swing, if you get a pushy hitter, these things want to fly forward. So now, just to create some feel, start them in the 50-50 position and have them turn. And right now my upper back is working extremely hard to keep my hands connected to my shoulder. So I can do that. And then you can actually swing the PVC pipe. Move this stool here. You can actually swing it to a check swing here. So from 50-50, you can swing it to a check swing, and you can see how everything had to stay here, because if I would have let my hands go, now I'm coming out the front side this way. That's one of my favorite things to do. It's on the ground now, but I prefer it to be about belly button height. It just gives you a better feel, and it allows your hands to kind of work around the bands a little bit easier, but that's one of my favorite ones. Another one I call is a one-handed scap load. So for hitters that get pushy, they don't understand how to use their rear arm. So I usually take the bat, choke up a little bit, and I have them go through their whole load and hold it with one hand. And you'll see their hand will get in and pretend that they have to hit the ball with one hand. Hold it there, and their rear arm will be in a good position. Then put the other hand on the bat, and then have them swing from there. So that way they'll feel themselves if they get to here by launch, and now they're just pushing the bat through versus getting to here, put the hand on the bat, and you can see the elbow breaks the line on my back here. So we're here, this way, grab it, and then swing from there. That's a really good couple drills for that.
Nice. All right, we've got Kaylin who's asking, what are some good drills for keeping the front shoulder and front hand from taking control and flying open, also relaxing the hands?
Um, is this Kaylin Coates? Yeah, this is Kaylin.
Yes.
Kaylin, relaxing your hands. I'm just gonna go ahead and assume you mean like not like over gripping the bat and over twisting. So allowing your hands to get caught by your turn is kind of a good way to talk about it. But let me see, what's the first part of that question? Front
So
shoulder.
front shoulder and front hand from taking control and flying open.
Okay, so this one's good. You can take a ball. I've got balls over here. Hang on. All right. So you can take a ball here and put it right here at your front shoulder, okay? And what you do is first create a feel, right? So you want to turn. You want your thumb to go from thumb up to thumb down without leaving your shoulder, okay? So from the side, we're thumb up to thumb down. And all I did nothing else. I didn't lift my elbow. I didn't do anything. I just turned and went thumb up, thumb down. And once you get into that position a little bit, thumb up, thumb down, stay glued to the shoulder here, thumb up, thumb down, then you can get to launch and then throw the ball off of your shoulder. Now, when you do it, make sure we're not throwing across my body this way and getting that chicken wing, but make sure we're throwing the ball. So I'm trying to rotate, but I'm also thinking about throwing the ball, if you're a right-handed hitter, over the second baseman's head, if you're a left-handed hitter, over the shortstop's head. That way, the ball and your arm stays in line with your back shoulder, which again, if we put a bat in our hand, if I chicken wing, look at the path of the bat, it gets there, but then it comes off the ball this way. If I keep my hands glued to my back shoulder, I turn and throw it. You can see how much longer I stay in the zone this way when the hands stay in line with the back shoulder. So ball throws are really good for that. And if you've got heavy balls at home, like the weighted balls, plyo balls, those are really good for it too. It's just right here, turn quickly, throw it off of that back shoulder.
All right. And Joey Jacob says, I don't know if we talked about this yet, but how can we keep our hands from dropping down right when we swing?
Well, we talked about that one. So when we record it, or when the recording goes online, we'll make sure that we get you some things just because we talked about it earlier at the beginning. Unless you have anything you want to add, Liz.
No, nothing really.
Okay.
All right. Awesome. All right. Is there any other questions out there? And guys, next week we're actually going to call on you and ask you to ask your question yourself. It's something I completely forgot about, but yeah, we, again, as reminders, so you can always reach out to either myself or Rachel. My email is northernnevadatilt@gmail.com. Rachel, if you'll type mine in and yours in, feel free to reach out. If there are any topics you guys want us to address or anything, we're happy to add those in. We do have a run of them. We want to thank all of you guys for coming. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Yep, northernnevadatilt@gmail.com. And we look forward to seeing you guys again next week. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you Thursday at 6 p.m. PST next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Doris. Thank you. Cameron, thank you. And Tanis, thanks so much. Such a pleasure, guys. Juliana, thank you. Ryan, good to see you again. Thanks so much for coming. Cassie, you got it. Coach Andrade, thank you so much. Bye, Chloe and Coach Nick, Marissa. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate you coming. Awesome. Bye, Robert. Thanks for coming. That's a Reno guy. We love him. And Scott, too. Thank you.
Bye, Kaylin.
Bye, Kaylin. Oh, I missed you. Hey, Kaylin, I'm Coach Liz, too. You can say bye to me.
She's just one of my kids.
I know. They all love you. Hi, Stuart. Good to see you again, all the way from Canada.
Yep.
And Kristen, nice to see you.
Another pro stud. Look at her.
Oh, yeah?
Hey, are you walking yet? Hey, there we go. She had surgery on her ankle, I think, or foot. Ankle, foot, one of them. The foot.
But yeah, I saw that now. Kristen, you played for the Bandits, right?
unmute yourself. You can talk. You're allowed.
Oh, I have to unmute her. It's my
Oh,
fault. We had to do that though. There she is. Unmute. Hi,
Oh,
Kristen.
hey.
You did play for the Bandits, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I follow. I mean, gosh, Rachel, you think I went into a hole after
I didn't.
after I retired?
There was another stud in the mix.
Nice,
So,
nice. Yeah, people are like, oh, so when did you decide to retire? I was like, oh, when I got the letter saying I wasn't gonna come back.
That's kind of where I'm at.
I retired because I couldn't afford to play anymore.
Well,
for sure.
They were like, yeah, we're actually not going to bring you back next year. And I was like, what? Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for that, right? Yeah. I know. I was on the verge of, I was getting prepped. I talked to Bill over at the Bandits, and I was like, all right, I'm going to come up and try out. Like, yeah, I realized I struggled, but I worked my tail off over the summer. And then in March, or that whole off season, and then in March, I got diagnosed with RA. So I was, done. Hey, yeah, Stuart, yeah, you can ask more questions. We're just shooting it with everyone.
Now we're just on bonus time, dude. The Bandits sent me my walking papers too, so don't worry. We've all been given the boot by the Bandits, so hey, high fives. Woo, woo, woo.
They did not, really? They're crazy. That's silly.
I fell off of my bicycle.
Oh, that's right.
I tore my thumb ligament, and then they cut me, and then I ended up playing on the Diamonds the next year.
Whoops.
Yeah, my answer was that they had to make roster cuts, but I don't know.
I was told I was going to get re-signed. They were like, we'll re-sign you. We're going to cut you now and bring on a healthy player, and then we're going to we'll re-sign you the next year. And then the next year, I got a phone call, and they said, yeah, we're going to go in another direction. That was the year they picked up Kristen Butler.
Ella wrote, oh, no, they did not. Okay, Ella wrote, so don't go play for the Bandits. Well, you could win a lot of World Series, though. They went.
Yeah, now you can. Pride's gone.
Yeah.
It's business. Like pro softball, go support pro softball in any way you can. I don't care what you do.
It gives us an opportunity. It gives college girls something to fight for. It gives so many things. I mean, and I was told, so mine was unconventional. I was told my senior season, I tore my shoulder up. I was told I'd never throw again. I redshirted. I came back. They told me I'd never be able to throw again. And 5 years later, I stepped in a pro jersey. So everybody's got their own story. And without having the pro league, we don't have stories like that, so it's pretty cool. But yeah, Stuart, yeah, we can talk more about hip extension. Sure. Can we talk more about hip extension and hitting with your back? Focus more on your back hip.
What do you got for me, Stuart? Explain yourself.
Well, I want to learn more about, because I've heard, I don't know if you guys know Carlton's at San Antonio there. He talks a lot about hitting with the back, and I just don't know exactly what that means, and so I just want more explanation about that.
Yeah, no, that's good. So Carlton's a big movement guy, and I'm a big movement guy too, so we get along, him and I. So basically, your lat, your big triangle-shaped muscle in your back, connects your scap to the top of your hip here.
Sure.
So that muscle is what controls this tilt in your swing. So learning how to engage that muscle is super, super important. And then there's also a bunch of little muscles that there were some strength and conditioning guys on here earlier. They could probably tell you and get better at. But basically, again, the muscles that surround your scapula, those muscles are what stabilize your upper body to allow your lower body to turn first. Okay? So if we don't engage the top of our back here, we're either going to get length this way or we're going to get length this way. So to keep your hands fused to your body, you have to have a strong upper back, okay? So when you have a good upper back and your hip turns, your lat is naturally going to contract this way, and that's what's going to tilt you underneath the ball and get you on plane with the ball. So if we don't, that's what he means by turning with your back. And also too, we point to our legs a lot, but we want to use our glutes to really drive the swing. So your glutes are always your primary movers on your body. That's why they're the biggest muscle on your body. And your glutes control what your pelvis does. So we're loading the back side of our body, not the front side of our body by being on our toes. So when we load the front side of our body, now we're on our quads. You can see how my quads engaged right now. But when I load the back side of my body, you can see how it's a little bit more of my hamstring engaged, and this is a little bit more loose. And so that's what we mean by loading the back. And that will allow you to turn and turn efficiently without having to try to manipulate your body in one way or the other. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I've been working with one of my daughters a lot on like hip extension, like trying to get that hip extension to get more power in her swing, and I think it's working. I just wanted more explanation.
Yeah, so hip extension too, like always make sure that you have the ability to tilt your pelvis. So again, like you arch your back and your ability to round your back this way. See how my upper body's not moving? That's your glutes contracting, and then the front side where you extend your hip, pulling your pelvis through this way. So as you turn, right, that natural tilt is how you get that back hip extension. And so that's what's going to happen. But if you cannot physically do this movement, you're always going to have deficiencies and breakdowns in your swing. So until you can do that, I would not recommend you on moving on something else. So literally, like if you have hitters that can't get that back hip extended, test them. Have them hold a bat up here, arch your back, round your back. And you see how I can move it without moving the bat? You'll see hitters, they can't do it. They physically can't do it. So guess what? Put a bat on the ground, arch your back, round your back. I just twerked on a Zoom call, Liz. This is fun.
I'm not going to lie, you are going to get a text later on tonight and go, do you know that you twerked on a Zoom call? So
I would just have them put the bat here for stability, or back of a chair, or hold on to a fence or a pole or something. And first make sure they can do that movement. Then remove the stability. Have them put that movement. You can also have them doing it lying down. But until their brain can tell their pelvis to move that way, they're always going to struggle.
Right.
You have to build that first. If you can't do it slow, you can't do it fast.
Stuart, I don't know if you ever heard like someone tell like the hitter to squeeze a jelly bean and to pick up a jelly bean between their butt cheeks. I mean, Sue Inquist used to say that all the time. That right there, like that alone, when you're thinking of that, is kind of what's engaging that hip. So, you know, this is the difference between, you know, coaching a collegiate athlete or coaching a 6-year-old is you can get them by telling them to squeeze a jelly bean between their butt cheeks. You can get them to do what you're needing them to do without giving them the dialogue behind it.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else while we're on here? You might as well. It's free softball at this point. It's like the 11th inning of a World Series game.
This is good stuff. I love this stuff.
All right. None of you guys can unmute yourself. So what I'm gonna free reign unmute you all.
Rachel.
Just know it's happening. Hi, Ella.
What's up?
She's all mad at me now.
Why?
Because I asked, when are we going to play softball again?
Oh, yeah. Not soon enough.
I have a feeling it's going to go the way of pro sports. Until a pro sport starts playing, I don't think the kids are going to start playing.
Well, you have some connections. Why don't you, get it rolling?
You think I have connections?
The mascot might be higher.
You're not wrong. So Liz asked me, she's like, hey, do you have any, like, can you sign like a hat or something like for one of my friends? And I'm like, dude, I got to pay for those hats. Like, I don't get them for free. It's not like, I'm just, you know, I'm just on the team. I'm not like, I don't have any pull whatsoever. I still have to pay for everything.
Softball Zoom.
Great.
Talk about hitting.
Rachel, yeah. Oh, yeah. You guys are all unmuted, just so you know. Coach Buck McClellan, that's on Rachel. That's the coach you are going to be sending stuff to. He's a huge Cubs fan. So
But
Yeah, can I get that shirt? Can you get me one of those?
yeah, one of my hitting students actually.
Every once in a while, mine does that to people.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've got somebody who's not muted on here. Maybe Taylor Smart, maybe. I'm not sure.
Maybe. Or Noel.
Nope.
There's no, come on.
No.
Dude, I know Noel. I'm sorry.
We had
I'm just kidding.
a Noel. We had a Noel on the team.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, Obvious Shirts. That's the name of the company.
Yeah.
I meant to plug Jaeger bands and say, hey, those of you that are getting your stimulus check, they're a USA product. So, you know, that's where it's at. But I meant to plug them, but we can do it another time.
J-Bands.
Sweet. Well, guys, thank you guys so much for coming. Rachel, I'll reach out and get your feedback. And if anybody has any feedback of things we can do better, we'll always take it. But we so appreciate you guys being here and look forward to learning some more with you guys. All right. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Right.
Night. Thanks.